All right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this morning's InfoByte session, Fortinet Technical Workshop, Wireless and Switches, presented by our Fortinet pre-sales lead and now proclaimed Forti Maestro of Wavelink, Jaden Zullo. My name's Craig Thompson. I'm the Channel Marketing Manager at Wavelink, for those who don't know me. And based on the direct feedback from you, our reseller community, on the first round of events, this session is a very technical focused session on the application of Fortinet switches and the wireless service offering, ultimately highlighting why choosing a single vendor strategy is beneficial for your customers. Now, our team love questions, so we ask that throughout today's session, should you have any, please enter them in the chat box you'll see on your toolbar, or you can raise your hand and we will unmute you if you prefer to ask the question. Now, as a takeaway for today's event, we've also included a handout that you'll find in the handout section. This will also be included on the landing page with the recording session after the event as well. Speaking of that, we are recording today's session, so we will share a link for you to share with your teams after the event, and we also encourage any feedback that you have on the session via the form that will also be included on the email. Finally, if you do have any questions or any issues like Frank just did, please feel free to contact me in the chat box and we'll be able to sort them out. Like I said, with audio, just make sure that your speaker settings are all set up. Everyone's on mute by default, but everyone should be able to hear me crystal clear. With that being said, I will hand over to Jaden. Thanks very much.
So now that we've got 5 minutes in, it leaves us 15 minutes left. So the feedback was that we wanted to have some more technical info bites. So doing 20 minutes to do something technical was quite a challenge, but let's see if we can get through it. So those who have been to my seminars before, as you know, a lot of infrastructure that exists on site. A lot of people look for best of breed, and therefore they've got maybe too many vendors across their networking and security. So with Fortinet being one of the top 3 global security vendors, you can be peace of mind when you tell your customers, look, we need to reduce how many vendors on site, but don't worry, we're going with one of the best. Those too many alerts that come through from too many vendors can be a little bit of an issue in a little bit of a boy or girl who cries wolf. So reducing that to a single pane of glass is one of Fortinet's specialties. Then we've also got your expensive and slow manual response when you're trying to follow too many alerts across too many vendors. And what that means is that you're sending your techs out on site, or perhaps you've got people in your team trying to find out where the outbreak or the inefficiency is. Whereas what you have with Fortinet is machine AI and policy sync to help speed that process up of investigation as well as enforcement. And finally, just a lack of trained people across multiple vendors, understanding many alerts, and then having an expensive and slow response. What you can do with Fortinet is have ease of use, both with the NSE online training, as well as the FortiOS, which is to its best, trying to standardize across all 27 products as well. So one thing when we talk about single vendor is we often have to look and compare to the other people in the market who claim to be, you know, an all-encompassing security provider, but the way they actually do it is normally through open APIs or alliance partnerships. Well, Fortinet have open APIs. They also have partnerships as well with different vendors, but most of all is they've got 27 products in 4 different form factors across all industries that actually cover the main 10 components that a small business and medium-sized business would need to achieve the essential 8 as recommended by cyber.gov.au. Just also to note there as well that Cisco and Meraki do have the same sort of all-encompassing 100% there as well. There's no point covering that up, that's just the facts. So let's look today from a technical perspective what we're going to cover. So we've got 2 items, the FortiSwitch and the FortiAP. What's different about FortiSwitch? Well, if you have a FortiGate on site, what you're able to use is what we call FortiLink. And what FortiLink does is it basically makes the FortiSwitch a logical extension of the FortiGate. So it gives you that single pane of glass for the switching ports in your FortiSwitch from the management interface of the FortiGate, meaning you don't need to switch between your switching sort of login, admin login, and you don't need to sort of switch back to the router and push security policies that way. It becomes a logical extension. So if you don't have a FortiGate on site and you're instead interested in a PoE layer 2 switch at a good price, or potentially a switch that can do more around that port level snooping, maybe you want to look at sort of a layer 3 functionality or a chassis switch, you don't necessarily need a FortiGate on site, and you can manage it via FortiCloud with their FortiSwitch function as well. But in today's sort of technical seminar, we're going to show FortiLink with a FortiGate. So what are the actual different types of 40 switches? Well, there's quite a lot. So there's actually 6 types of 40 switches, and they're ranked by series. So you can see there's some of the differentiators. You go from the 100 series, which is a PoE plus layer 2 capable switch in 8, 12, 24, 48 ports, and then a 500 series, which you can do MAC IP binding, multicast PIM, SSM, and then equal cost multipath routing, or ECMP, as well as having 40 gig QSFP. If that's not enough, you've got the 1000 series, which is chassis based, which allow for the 1000 series up to a maximum of 4 times 100 GE QSFP ports. Or if you need something that's even bigger than that, you get the 3000 series, which you can modular put all 32 QSFPs to be 100 GE. So you've also got a ruggedized option in case you need somewhere where you just want to set and forget. It's with the fanless passive cooling. And then you've got a range of SFPs as well as SFP cables that you can use with those particular switches. They also work on the 40 gate as well, the transceiver modules. So let's get into looking at a 40 switch and actually wanting to set it up. And as Craig said, we do have an actual handout there with the steps. You can follow along if you'd like on the steps, or alternatively, you can try yourself when you're sort of outside of the presentation. So I hope everyone can see me here. What we're going to do is use my very interesting camera here. Ooh. So what we're going to do here is we have set up here, it's a 40 gate, it's a 60E, okay, it's not a 60F, and it's a 60E running version 6.2.4. All right, now I want to show everyone here that this is what we're using. We're not using sort of a demo where it's all just a VM and everything goes smoothly. This is actually a 10E PoE. So you can also see here that those in red, these are the PoE plus outputs. These are the non-PoE outputs. You also get 2 SFPs. Normally you'd put the SFP in and then use one of these as what we call the 40 link designated, but instead we're going to use this end port here because I want to make it as simple and as realistic as possible. So as I said, this is real, and because it's real, we just hope that everything goes to plan. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump into the browser, and on the browser here, I'm going to go to the default address 168.1.99. And I'm going to log in with the default credentials, which is admin blank. So this is proof that this is all. I haven't done any ace up my sleeve, nothing fancy about it. This is literally a from scratch how you set up 40 link on a 40 gate. So let's log in. All right, so as you can see, normal 40 gate, so let's just ignore all that. And then once we get in, what we'll do is we'll give this particular 40 gate internet. So we'll just quickly jump into the network. We'll go into the static routes. And just up here as well, you'll see it's version 6.2.4. So I'll just quickly give this a static route, dynamic gateway interface on WAN, and then dynamic. So press OK on that. All right, then what we do. So what you do is you jump onto your 40 gate, you go into the interfaces. One thing you need to see here is normally by default, and if you're using some older versions, it may be listed as something different, but here on 6.2, you'll have what's called internal. So what you want to do here is you want to go into the internal, which is the default, and you want to remove from here, because this is all bound together to be a software switch. So you want to remove the port that you would like to use as your 40 link. So in this instance here, what we want to do is we want to use, say, port 7. So we remove port 7, and then we go, okay, so that's now been removed from the default bindings. Then what we can do is, come on, 40 gate, don't let me down. It's just what it's doing now is it's just reconfiguring the ports. So I've lost connection, it will come back. Once it's come back, we'll see that that should now be removed. So 5 and 6, so 7's been removed. Okay, so as you can see, 7's been removed from here. Then what we want to do is if you've got a slightly older 40 gate, you might want to check that this has been turned on. So you go to System Feature Visibility and you turn on the switch and the Wi-Fi controller. That will give you this menu here on the left. So then what you can do is you can go to Wi-Fi switch controller and the 40 link interface. Now the 40 link interface, you now need to add the port that we've just removed. So let's remove port 7, and then that's now our designated 40 link port, okay? So at the moment, there's no connected devices. We leave everything as the default here, and we automatically authorize any switches that we connect. So let's apply. All right, so now what I'm gonna do is, we've got our designated in the interfaces here. we've got port 7 on our FortiGate is now the FortiLink. So this is now going to automatically authorize any FortiSwitch dedicated to FortiSwitch here. Okay, so let me show you what I'm going to do now. Let's get that camera back up. So what I'm going to do is on the FortiSwitch, I've got port 8, which is this cable here, and I'm going to plug this into the back of the FortiGate into number 7. Okay, so I'm just going to do that now. Boom. So now I plug the FortiSwitch into the FortiLink port. So now what we can do is we can jump back here into the GUI, and we can go now to Wi-Fi switch and controller, manage FortiSwitch. And what this will do now is this will actually start to bring up the actual managed FortiSwitch as it finds itself in the interim. So as you can see here, it's just loading it all up. That's the 8-port PoE. So I'm going to go into the VLANs, and what we have to do is create a VLAN now for everything on the FortiSwitch. So let's just do that now. We'll just call this the FortiSwitch data. There we go. Let's make it VLAN 10. And then we're going to change the color to blue. The role is LAN, that's fine. And then we'll just put in a different subnet just to make it easier when we plug in some more equipment to here as well. So that's fine. We're also going to need to make sure here we use the security fabric connection. And then just in case I lose connection, I'm going to give myself HTTP. And then just as a habit, I'm going to use FMG as well. Then I'll also turn on the DHCP server. So what this will do is it will then everything I plug in, because I will show you here how I'm going to connect the device. That will ensure that it gets an IP address, and then I'm turning on device detection here, which means MAC address filtering will be available. So I'm actually going to connect something into the switch, and all these settings here are helpful for that. So now that we've created the actual new VLAN, let's go to the ports of the switch. And what we do is the actual native VLAN for each of the ports on the 8-port switch. So as you can see here, port number 8, we've got that plugged into the FortiGate, so we can't use that. So that's the symbol for FortiLink. So instead, what we're going to do is for these ports here, we're going to change them from the default one to our new VLAN. Okay, so that's now all been changed. And then what we do is we go back up to the policy and objects. We give that particular VLAN access to the WAN, which is what we did earlier. So we're just going to quickly make our IPv4 policy. So anything that's coming in on the new VLAN that we created, give it access to the internet. And we'll just make that so that it works by just doing the infamous all. Great, okay. And then if we wanted to here, we could apply some security profiles, which is what you should do, but look, just for the purpose of, you know what, cybersecurity number 1, let's do that. Okay, cool. So now I have an IPv4 policy, which means the new VLAN that we've got is able to access the internet. So if I go down to switch and controllers and the managed FortiSwitch, you can see here, this is the symbol for our FortiLink port. These are our 8 ports. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect the device. So look here, this is our computer over here that we're going to use. As you can see, we're using, it's an AKA QLD02, HALQ. So that's the name of it. It's connected via this white cable. So what we're going to do is plug this into port number 1. All right, we get those little magic dots. There we go. So now we've got that plugged in on a switch. Let's go back to the FortiGate here. So this is the port that we've plugged into. Let's refresh this. This will now start to send our data. And what we can do to monitor that is we can go to monitor, DHCP monitor. And on here, you can see AKA QLD02. So it's found the device, it's given it an IP address. So what we will be able to do here from the security fabric is single pane of glass, physical topography. Here's my FortiGate, here's my connected FortiSwitch. And then coming off from the FortiSwitch there we go, AKA Queensland 2. So now that we've got that hooked up and it's actually pushing through, what I will do in the interim is get ready to do the AP. So what I'll do is that's the access point there. I'll take this blue cable and I'll plug this into port 2 on the switch. All right. And then we'll actually get ready to add an access point. So that's how quick and easy it is to add. We're using FortiLink, a switch, and that now goes into the fabric and we can push out the policy and rules. So let me just jump back into the presentation and we'll talk about FortiAP. So from a wireless perspective, you just saw with the switch, you can integrate it, make a logical extension of your switch as part of the FortiGate to do single pane of glass from that topographic view. You could do the exact same with access points. So here you've got the wireless controller built into the FortiGate. You get some FortiGates, which are called FortiWi-Fis, which actually have an access point in them, or you could do what we just did this then, and you can plug in an access point and manage that via the FortiGate, which will allow you to push security profiles that way. So again, if you don't have a FortiGate on site, it doesn't matter, because what you're able to do is you can actually use FortiCloud, and that has FortiAP Cloud on there, which allows you to push the settings, security settings through as well. And you can also do zero-touch deployment that way as well. So you'll see there that the S series, which is now going to soon be the U series, allow you to push UTM security services through to your access point. So with a lot of people working remote at the moment, we've got a lot of inquiries where people are saying, hey, can we use a FortiWi-Fi 30E at people's homes? Well, what we've been suggesting instead is to use a U series, an S series, a C series access point, and actually ship that to the end users, to the remote users' home internet with NBN, and then you can actually connect up and push UTM services through that access point, as well as having a VPN set up in there so that you can connect an IP phone, for instance. Many people have probably already seen this slide. This is how to decode the actual SKUs for FortiAPs. So you've got FAP, and then a prefix, which is either a U or C or an S. S is actually going end of life, and C being cloud managed. You can, even though cloud managed implies it's only FortiAP cloud, you can use the FortiGate for it. So let's have a look here at the models. You've got the FAP series, the U series, and the C series, and then you've got your extension on there, which is PoE injectors, antennas, and FortiPresence, which lets you do visitor location tracking as well as telemetry as well. So I'm very conscious of time, so sorry to rush through that, but let's just quickly go into the AP, and I'll finish the setup here of a FortiAP. So as you saw, I plugged into the switch the FortiAP. So now when I go into Wi-Fi switch controllers and I go to Forti managed APs, you'll see that I've got the access point waiting authorization. I just right click and I authorize the device. And then once that's authorizing now, I need to do two things. I need to make an SSID so that we can all see the SSID, that it's actually connected and that this isn't an ace up the sleeve. So I'll just name that SSID. I'll put it in bridge mode. We'll give this a key. There we go. And then what I'll also do whilst over here as well, that should be fine. I'll just leave it how it is. Boom. Okay, so we've got an SSID. Now, one thing with FortiGates to keep in mind, they are looking to fix this, but at the moment with your profile, what you should do is you will need to create, just to make sure you've got everything set up correctly, create yourself an AU profile. So find the model. In this instance here, we're using a FATU321EV, and we need to go to here, country region, and specify this to Australia. That's really important to do that. I'm going to give myself administrative access as well. And then I'm coming down to here. I'm going to change the SSID to be the SSID I just made. And then I'll do the same on the 5 gigahertz as well. So manual, and then I'll add the SSID. That's great. And I'll also locate the clients as well when it's not connected. Okay. So now the access point is being authorized. We've got ourselves an AU profile so that it's definitely using the radio frequencies for Australia. We go back to the Forti managed AP. It's online. Okay. So we right click. We assign the profile of the AU one that we created. That's now going to push it out, which means that we can go to monitor. We can go to Wi-Fi client monitor down here. You see no one's connected at the moment. So what I'll do is actually connect the device. So let's go onto my mobile device here, and then we'll connect onto the device. Wi-Fi internet usage, Wi-Fi not connected. And then we're going to then connect through onto, this is always the slowest part, isn't it? It's pushing out the SSID. Come on. Connecting. There we go. All right, so now I can go to monitor, Wi-Fi client monitor. And there we go. There's the Android device that's connected. And in Fabric View, that we've got here on the, there we go. There's our Android device here as it's connected. So just to prove that this is all working and that it's real. So you can see here on the phone, I've connected to the Fortinet AP and it's all working from there. So there we go. There we have it. Just put that away in there. And then we have everything working, single pane of glass. If there are any questions, I'll pass to Craig now, but I know we've run over time and I hope that was insightful for everyone.